Very good evening, everyone, and we're glad to welcome you to our third webinar from our series on legal English, which is called this fall of 2024, The Language of IP Law. And today the topic of our webinar is going to be electronic commerce and intellectual property. We have already talked about, in general, we had some overview of intellectual property, and also 2 weeks ago we spoke about licenses and contracts, and today electronic commerce. And I would like to present to you once again our wonderful specialist, Professor Dan Sloan from California, who is joining us again and who is overviewing this series. And we're very eager to start today and to learn something new, because there is always something new that we'll learn from you, Dan, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Sophia. It's morning here in California, but it's evening there in Moscow in Russia. So various time zones around the country there. I'm pleased to be here and to begin this next lesson or next session. It's on, as you said, electronic or e-commerce and IP property law. So we're just going to start right into this because I think probably most of our audience has participated before. If you're not, if you're new, we'll just go over some of the things we're doing. I'm showing slides here. We have Telegram, which is the chat that you can ask questions about. There's a QR code as well as a link that you should have received. It's here again as well. If you want to use your phone and just click on that, it'll probably come up again anyway. We have questions that we're going to have, questions and answers during the presentation. But if you have questions about the terms, vocabulary, the content, please make the request on Telegram and they will get that information to me. Okay, and then if you have something afterward that you didn't get answered, let us know and I'll see if I can get to it and get back to you later. So that's kind of the way it works. We're going to go through a few slides on the slide deck. Then we're going to have a question or two, and you can clarify meaning or the legal issues or legal English that's involved in the questions. So some of the key terms or key international issues about this area of e-commerce is about jurisdiction. And I hope we can see this well enough. Looks like it's a little blurry, but I guess it's okay.
No, it's fine. It's
is
fine.
It? Okay.
So, yeah.
The rebroadcast may make it a little blurry on my side, but I've got the original in front of me. So establish jurisdiction is to establish clear jurisdiction standards for cross-border e-commerce transactions to assist businesses in understanding legal obligations and protecting the intellectual property rights. So jurisdiction is very important to establish prior to enacting any e-commerce activity, so that if there is an issue, we know which laws and which standards are going to be set, where issues might be either mediated, arbitrated, or litigated. So that's important to understand. Number 2, IP protection. We want to implement international treaties that harmonize intellectual property protections across countries, ensuring digital content is safeguarded from unauthorized use and infringement. So that's the crux of what we're trying to do. By crux, I mean that is the real issue, is how do we protect intellectual property when it's in an e-commerce type of platform. The third part of what we're going to discuss here is consumer protection. And we want to create robust consumer protection regulations in e-commerce that emphasize transparency, data protection, and redress mechanisms for consumers in online transactions. So we want to be able to give confidence, and that's the purpose of what we're doing here, give confidence to the consumer that what they're purchasing is legal, it's valid, that they have the right to use that content as it is told to them. So it's not just protecting our client or protecting the corporations or companies or entities that are putting their product out there, which is also another reason we want to give them confidence. We want to give entrepreneurs and creators confidence that they can put their IP on the internet or in e-commerce environments and still have ownership. And that's a lot of what we're doing here in this particular slide deck today. So some of the jurisdiction and applicable law. What we want to do in order to get to that point is we want to navigate laws across different jurisdictions in online transactions. And because online transactions themselves are in the web or in an environment that is really difficult to control, because as soon as it goes into the cloud, where does it go? That's what we want to do, is we want to see what kind of protections are available out there in various laws in various jurisdictions around the world, whether it's the EU and a block of countries that are acting together, or whether it's various countries that we do a lot of business with or transactions exchange. We want to identify those. So the navigation is the first part. Identifying is determining the governing law for resolving disputes internationally. And that's when we get into WIPO and many of the various UN regulated or at least governed in EU type of governed circumstances or resolving parties, whether we're going to go into Geneva in a dispute with WIPO, or whether we're going to resolve it in a different jurisdiction. Selection, including the forum selection clauses in contracts to avoid disputes. So we want to select which clauses we want to put into the contracts so that we know in advance what we're going to do in the event there is a dispute, what kind of ADR we might go into, alternative dispute resolution, whether it's going to be mediation, arbitration, and then or litigation, which language it's going to be held in, and which laws it's going to be governed by. So we want to put that in advance. Compliance. We want to ensure that compliance is good with local laws in each jurisdiction. We might have an international agreement, but are we going to be able to apply that to a local jurisdiction? So those are really challenging when you're writing a contract. You know, how do we put all of this in there to ensure that we are complying with the local jurisdictions and laws as well? So that's part of what we're looking at. And then crafting. Crafting is creating the clear terms regarding applicable law agreements. Now that we've done our navigating, identifying, selecting, and ensuring that we can comply, how do we craft that into a clear contract and have clear terms? The next step would be relevant. We want to adhere to consumer protection laws that are relevant to each jurisdiction, ensuring that what we put into the contract is relevant for that particular jurisdiction on the local basis. And then mechanisms. Establishing mechanisms for resolving cross-border disputes efficiently. What kind of mechanisms do we have? So it's actually quite a bit to do, quite a bit to prepare for in trying to establish the jurisdiction in which applicable laws are there. So we're just kind of starting off at the ground here, ground basis. Introduction to electronic commerce and intellectual property. Again, what is the legal framework? So we need an understanding of international treaties like TRIPS and GDPR ensures compliance in digital businesses. We want to have content protection utilizing technological measures like DRM safeguards and intellectual property in e-commerce platforms, digital rights management, and then consumer trust again to ensure that implementing data protection and privacy policies foster consumer confidence and enhances the loyalty. The last part of this would be dispute resolution. And we know that we're likely going to have disputes. It's almost unavoidable. So incorporating efficient domain name dispute processes aids at quickly resolving trademark issues. So this can happen to where, and you probably have seen it, where there's a dispute over the name that's being used. The domain name has been taken by someone else, has been purchased first, and then they have the rights to it because of ownership, but maybe they don't have the legal right to use it in the manner in which it's being used. So there's a lot of issues that come up generally in that area as well. Protecting, okay, so how do we enforce? And that generally is really a big issue. We can write a lot of laws, but how do we enforce the laws? How do we enforce judgments that have been made in various courts or in arbitral tribunals? How do we ensure that we're going to enforce them? Well, we can implement notice and takedown procedures so that if there's content that was put up that infringes on our intellectual property, we can ask that be swiftly removed, the content that infringes upon our property. We can establish safe harbor provisions that limit liability on online platforms, promoting active rights protections. And we can have technological solutions, which are ideal. So utilize digital watermarking and fingerprinting technologies to track and identify copyrighted content alongside geo-blocking and restrict access based on geographical locations to protect IP rights. So most people think, well, there are links that are out there that are broken, that won't work. I can't get on the internet. A certain platform I like to use no longer is available to me. Why is this? It's not fair. And we get addicted to various platforms, and then they're not there anymore. Well, all countries in the world do block the internet. That's just a fact. And it's because of these issues like we're talking about here. Intellectual property needs to be protected. And there's content that should be purchased and not given away for free to protect the rights of the owners of the property. So that's what they're talking about. And some of the terms here you might understand or might know, but watermarking is like, to ensure
that's clear. Yes. So
fingerprinting and
fingerprinting technology is much more interesting, I would say.
Yeah. And geo-blocking. So with the newest technologies, you can upload something, and the platforms, if they have the right technology, will automatically identify that is a copyrighted property, and not allow it to be used, because they may have some liability for allowing content to be distributed without the consent of the owner. Very interesting. Okay, we have a question, our first one. And for those that have not used it yet, I'm not starting it yet, but you'll need to get on your phone.
Yes.
See a couple people coming in now.
Yes, so everyone, you received notification about 10 minutes prior, plus in our Contact or on YouTube, because today actually we're experimenting and we're trying to have simultaneous broadcasting for YouTube. In the first message in chat on YouTube or if Contact, you can see also there is a link. So you're very welcome to join. You just press on the link and you just type in your name. It can be your name or any other name. Just remember who you are. So, and then you'll be very, very welcome to answer the questions that Dan has prepared for you. And one last logistics like moment. So as we know from now, there is about 20 minimum seconds delay when we're broadcasting to VKontakte. And there is about 5-7 seconds delay maybe when we are broadcasting on YouTube. So it does give some privilege, I would say now, I just realized, to those who are on YouTube, but life is this. We just realized it. So you will have some time, you will have some limit of time to answer the questions, but Dan has done some magic, and there is usually, we're leaving more time than usual, not 30 seconds, but minimum a minute, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Okay. So.
Okay. Thank you. And some of these questions are fairly easy, while others are more challenging. So you will find them both fun and challenging. Some will be easy. Some will have one answer, and then others may have many answers or more than one. So just to forewarn you. Okay, we have enough people in here. Are you ready? Go. So which of the following measures can enhance customer trust in e-commerce platforms? Avoid dispute resolution mechanisms, adopting a lack of transparency in business practices, using complex legal jargon in terms and conditions, ignore international treaties on intellectual property, or implementing data protection and privacy policies. Okay. Implementing data protection and privacy policies. Okay, we want to have dispute resolution mechanisms, if you remember. Adopting a lack of transparency. No, we want transparency so that people feel confident and comfortable with what they're using. Using complex legal jargon. No, we want to try to simplify that so there's an understanding, a meeting of the minds. And ignoring international treaties. Well, that's not a good idea either. So the last one was the correct answer. Let's see who is first so far. We have Dasha, Ivan, Lena, Anastasia, and Mariana. So very nice. And the way that this works, for those of you who have not played this before, when I open it up, it starts with 100 points. You'll see that Dasha has 92. That means Dasha read the question and answered the question very quickly. So not only do you receive points for getting it correct, you receive it for who gets the question correct first. Okay, so we have another one coming up. Ready? Which of the following measures is not considered a way to protect intellectual property in e-commerce? Utilizing watermarking technology to track copyrighted content, employing geo-blocking and limit access based on geography, using notice to take down procedures for infringement content, creating strong consumer protection laws, or implementing digital rights management, DRM measures.
That was difficult.
Strong consumer protection laws. So is not, and I think that may be the part that maybe some people didn't look at closely enough. It's kind of a trick question because it says measures is not considered a way. So we want to create strong. We don't want to create strong consumer protection laws. We want to create strong laws for the producers of the content.
I think a lot of people would automatically think that strong consumer protection laws are a necessity anyway, so they would automatically jump to this conclusion.
Yeah. But the others are clearly using watermarking technology, geo-blocking, takedown notices, and implementing digital rights management are very clear. Okay, so let's see where we are. Zeros on most. So we have 1111. I don't know who that one is, but You're the leader next. So we got one more, and then we're going to go on to some more content. Which measure is essential for ensuring compliance with international legal frameworks in electronic commerce? Is it skipping consumer protection laws? Using generic terms in contract agreements? Avoiding cross-border transactions? Implementing online advertising without regulations? Or understanding international treaties like TRIPS in GDR or GDPR? Most people got that right. That's very good. Understanding international treaties like TRIPS and GDPR. Very good. Who's out there in front next? We still have 1111, and that's 11/11, maybe from November 11. Singles Day. Yeah. So Ivan, and then Mariana and Dasha. Do you have Singles Day there in Russia?
No, but I don't think we have it. I remember the news about it, that in some countries they do have such day. But usually 11/11 is something like Black Friday, where the sale starts. So that is a big thing.
Where this comes into play with what we're doing here, it's very interesting. This person chose the 1111. Singles Day in China is a very large holiday, or at least a purchasing online content. So it's consumer e-commerce type stuff that we're talking about here, but in not maybe IP, but actual products. Very good. Liability of online platforms and intermediaries. So this is important to know. What kind of liability does the online platform or do the intermediaries have? User content. Platforms must monitor and respond to user-generated IP infringement claims. Okay, platforms must monitor and respond to user-generated IP infringement claims. Implement efficient procedures for rights holders to report infringing content. They need to implement efficient procedures for rights holders. Safe harbors to maintain compliance with legal frameworks to minimize liability for user actions, to try to make it safe for people to be on there, for consumers. Maintain compliance with legal frameworks to minimize liability for the user's actions. When you purchase something, you want to make sure that you're covered. And then conduct regular due diligence audits to ensure proactive measures against IP infringement. And partnerships, to engage in partnerships with rights holders for sharing best practices in IP protection. And a lot of this is education, because in many arenas, the platform can be very large. Alibaba, Amazon, they're a very large global platform. And compared to a small business or a small IP producer, they're almost non-existent compared to the large platform. So they need education, and they need to know how to best provide for the protections. So the platforms play a big role in that, in their intermediaries of best practices.
We've had some not very nice situation, if I'm not mistaken, about a couple of years ago, because we do have a large platform which is an equivalent of Amazon, I would say, and they had a huge leakage of personal information of people. So, and I remember that we were sitting with my friends a year ago, and we tried to find information about ourselves, and we managed to find it on some free websites, and there was everything. So, for example, I was ordering some pizza, and there was information, the comments on how to get to my apartment, which phone to call, which digital number to press to get into the building. And I remember that was the worst situation ever, because it was really horrible, because they are the intermediary, because they were connecting people for deliveries, and they failed. So I know that someone was trying to file collective or class action against them. I don't know, maybe our participants have some information about it. I'm far away from it. But I remember that that is the first thing that jumps into my mind about this exactly liability of intermediaries, because
Yeah.
they leaked everything.
And it can be the situation can be that the intermediary has subcontracted parts of their work in contracts or in dealing with certain clients or something, and that loss of control, because now it's subcontracted to another party, can get onto the platform and inadvertently
Yes.
information is disclosed that should not be. So that's a big issue that you're bringing up now, Sophia, that about AI, because AI will go out and it will search and find information. And if it can't find it, sometimes it will even create, it's what we call hallucinate. It will create stuff that's not true. And so we have to be very careful about, making sure that the content that is on our platform is supposed to be there, that it's not infringing on a copyright, but also it's not over disclosing privacy information that could get us into trouble. And those audits, due diligence, that to conduct annual reviews or semi-annual, quarterly, whatever's necessary, and even using new technologies like AI to help detect stuff that's been copyright infringed, plagiarized. All of that's really good. Videos, the watermarking, fingerprinting, all of that can be detected using technology. It's not 100% accurate, so you still have to go through, and people cheat, right? That's why the law is here, is to protect us.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So, and then what is faster, the law, the people, or the AI? So it's a race, as I understand, at the
AI
moment.
is amazingly fast in the way it is evolving. So it's difficult for the law to keep up. The law is generally way behind, and usually things become unethical, immoral, virtue, values, character becomes important. It is always important. And something will be unethical, and then eventually it becomes a social control to become illegal. We have governance put into it in various forms. But yeah, making sure that we have safe harbors where people feel like they have content that is by this platform you were discussing or on Amazon. They feel comfortable using it because they know Amazon is very large and will provide them that security to where they can purchase something and not feel like, I wonder if I'm violating any rules, right? And then the due diligence to ensure it, and then partnerships to make sure that your partners are not putting content that is infringing on your platform. All really important. So enforcement of IP rights across borders. So we have international treaties, the agreements like TRIPS to promote IP rights compliance globally, cross-border cooperation to foster collaboration among customs and law enforcement agencies internationally, so that if there is a dispute that comes into play, and we need law enforcement because it's something like trafficking in photography or things that are illegal, child abuse or something like that. We want to make sure that we have cooperation internationally across borders, digital tracking to implement technology for monitoring and reporting IP infringement activities online, and then dispute resolution. Now, all these are issues we would take into account in advance during the contractual basis, establish mechanisms for efficiently resolving international IP disputes. For data protection and privacy regulations, that's what we were just discussing a moment ago. So data processing, we want to implement strict data processing agreements to ensure compliance with data protection laws across jurisdictions. So in America, we have very strong laws. I'm not sure what you do in privacy there in Russia, but in America, we like our privacy. It's part of our Constitution and part of our rights. So we're very proud of that. And we don't want to have people infringing upon that privacy right. So if there's data about us or our children or things that could be found, we essentially want them taken down, and in user content or consent. Establish clear mechanisms for obtaining explicit user consent before collecting personal data for e-commerce. And that would be something that would be written on the platform, an agreement before somebody becomes a member.
And then I have a question actually right about it. Anastasia wrote in our chat on Telegram a question, which is pretty big, so I may read it, okay? So are terms of use, terms of service, terms and conditions, and other similar documents that application developers publish on their websites, landing pages of the platforms like Google, Amazon, can be considered as an agreement with the consumer and can be used for defining license terms, liability limitations?
They would be, but that would be something that you definitely want to have those kinds of terms and conditions in the agreement. But whether it would be upheld in court would be another thing. You'd want to find out if the jurisdictions that you're offering those services to would provide you that legal protection. Because in some countries, maybe in China, for example, if something were to be pulled down from the internet, it would be deemed illegal because it has content that is against public policy of their government. So it could be found that you're providing content that even though you have an agreement that it's legal to provide access to the producer, the consumer at the other end may not be entitled to have it according to local law. And it could be that the local laws are more strict, so that would be something that you would need to look into in terms of geofencing or geo-blocking to assure that those areas of distribution, those regions that you're going into, would be blocked from having that content. We see that a lot. I lived in China for many years, and in China we can't get Google, so I couldn't use Gmail. YouTube and other platforms were just not available. But again, this is something that happens in every country around the world, and they do it for these reasons because we want to protect the rights of producers of intellectual property so that they can withhold and maintain their rights to that property. For Netflix, for example, they block all over the world their content. The same thing with Amazon, and it's for commercial reasons. They have licenses that they've licensed their content from a third party, and they have to adhere to the rules of their license agreements. So they can't show it in India, for example. It might be illegal according to the agreement that they made with the producer of the content not to show it in certain areas of the world. So there's a lot of complexity here.
And there's another question, thank you very much, from Anastasia. What do you think, is privacy policy or privacy notice is an agreement by its nature or not? So it's a very specific question.
I don't know. You'd have to define what privacy means is the issue. What is private in one culture may not be private in another. So, yeah.
Okay.
Defining that would be a cultural and thereby a social issue, social controls, which there become unethical and eventually illegal, depending upon the impact. So if you want to view it from the lens of, let's say, if you're going into an Arabic country to where women are treated differently than they are in other countries, to where they're wearing a burqa, they have to cover themselves. Their privacy standards would be much different than they would be in a Western culture, like in America. So yeah, that would be something that it would be about the jurisdiction, these issues we're discussing here.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. And if there are any more questions, please write them. I will deliver them to them.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Then that's what this is about. How do we ensure that when we're putting something in the cloud, when we're going on an IP intellectual property platform, that we're distributing content, that we're adhering to the local laws as well as international and domestic regulations. So impact assessments. Conduct regular data protection impact assessments to identify and mitigate privacy risks in online platforms. And this would be important because your protection also goes into how well your security, like network security, is being upheld so that somebody is not gaining access to content and then redistributing it without your knowledge. And a lot of that can be internal, to where you want to make sure your employees are not engaged in activities that are nefarious, meaning illegal or unethical. Okay, we have another question here. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Are we going to have 1111, or are we going to have Ivan back? I see Lena, Olga. Is it Oleg? And quite a few. Okay, here we go. Which of the following measures can help enhance the enforcement of intellectual property rights across borders? Limiting cross-border cooperation between agencies, creating diverse dispute resolution mechanisms, establishing local customs regulations only, encouraging companies to ignore international treaties, or implementing technology for monitoring IP infringement online. And remember, it could be one or more. Okay, we have two. Creating diverse dispute resolution mechanisms, very good, and implementing technology for monitoring IP infringement online. And who is the person who is in the lead now? Okay, Ivan's catching up. Got 82 on that one. That's really good. And then Anastasia again. We have a smiley face here at the end. I'm not sure who that is. We got 1111. Still rocking it. Okay, another question. Which of the following actions can promote compliance with international IP rights effectively? Foster collaboration among global customs and law enforcement agencies. Establish clear dispute resolution mechanisms for international IP issues. Avoid technological implementation of monitoring online infringement. Ignore cross-border cooperation to manage local IP rights, or use international treaties like TRIPS to encourage IP or adherence to IP regulations. So we had two of them on that one. Most people got the utilizing international treaties, which is great. We also had to foster collaboration among global customs and law enforcement agencies. If you remember, we were discussing having that for enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, one more. Let's see who's in there first. Ivan took over the lead by just a few seconds.
Yes.
Yeah. Apparently he was within seconds, but just a little faster than 1111. So Anastasia and Dasha. Here we go. What is a primary goal of the TRIPS agreement in relation to international IP rights? To standardize ages for trademark registration, to encourage piracy of copyrighted material globally, to restrict access to digital content for consumers, to eliminate all intellectual property laws across countries, or to promote global compliance with intellectual property rights.
I was at first quite scared that we discussed TRIPS a long time ago, but then I saw the questions. I realized it's easy to answer.
To promote global compliance with intellectual property rights. So, yeah, the others are, if you read them, they're obviously skewed the opposite of what they should be. Let's see who's in front. Ivan pulled out ahead. Boy, Ivan got that one correct really quick. So 94. Dasha, Mariana, and Anastasia are pulling up the next positions. So what about taxation of digital goods and services? That's an important thing to know. So we want to establish clear digital tax policies that allow jurisdictions to tax online sales, ensuring compliance with local tax regulations while promoting fair competition between digital goods and traditional commerce across borders, fostering a balanced e-commerce ecosystem. So in America, we have different taxations depending upon which state and which county or even city, municipality. So it can be very complex to have those taxes, and it's something that you need to take seriously because you don't want to be liable, or you don't want your client to be liable for those taxes. Consumer protection in e-commerce. So what kind of protections can we provide, or are we responsible for the consumer? So complaint handling, online return, refund, and complaint procedures on your website. How do we ensure that if the complaint is made, and we want to allow people to make a complaint so that we can correct the system, especially if it's something that is illegal or unethical, so that they're heard and we can make those corrections rapidly. Encryption, and that's again getting back to the issue that you brought up earlier, Sophia, about making sure that privacy issues are not disclosed inadvertently or even intentionally. So use encryption to secure payment gateways to safeguard data. And then transparency, provide clear information on pricing, delivery times, and seller identity. And these get into sketchy or difficult or challenging areas when it's not clear, if you don't have a set schedule when the delivery will be made. I purchased something recently online and it wasn't clear. And I waited and waited, and it took a couple of weeks, and it came from Italy to the United States, but it wasn't clear on the website. And I felt that that was not transparent. If I had known that, I probably would not have purchased it. User reviews. So encourage and display customer reviews for products and services. So this adds another layer of protection, consumer protection, because the consumers will provide feedback to the platform, and the platform can make that available. So that's something you want to encourage. Support. Establish easy to access customer support channels for inquiries so that it's online. Generally, it's a chat or email or phone number that is readily available for support services. The wrong item selected or the delivery of the wrong content can then be corrected. And then data privacy, implement policies that protect consumer data in compliance with regulations. So again, in different jurisdictions, you're going to have different privacy policies. So the definition of what that means is all dependent upon where that business is being done. Geo-blocking may be necessary. When I lived in China, again, there were certain movies that I had seen in America that had content that had been deleted by the Chinese government or by the provider, the platform, because they knew that under their regulations it would not be legal for them to show the entire content. And it wasn't something that I thought was objectionable, but it was according to the local jurisdiction. So there are ways of conforming to privacy and data issues by altering or mitigating certain aspects of the content, removing things, or changing them.
We have a question about data privacy, actually. So the question is, there are actually two of them. So, okay. And what interests me is that we're actually, the purpose of our series is to study legal English. But what amazes me is that we always have questions about legal issues, not the language. So then, thank you so much for helping us. So if you can answer these questions. So first question is, how do companies running business in e-commerce in the United States can deal with the privacy regulations specific for each state? Are there any differences? Do you know probably?
There are differences in usually what it requires is that you have the technology to identify, just as you do, for example, with taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So the tax in one municipality, and we have zip codes that we use, but you also have the IP address for the platform. When people are using gosh, what do you call it? Slipped my mind. To withhold their IP address when you're
VPN?
VPN. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're utilizing a VPN, sometimes it can fool
Mm-hmm.
the system into thinking you're in a different location and actually observe movies, for example, that are blocked normally in that jurisdiction, in that region. But there are technologies now that can detect that you're using a VPN that will prevent you from doing it. So the privacy issues in various jurisdictions or various regions are crucial, that you're upholding the regulations according to that region or area, and identifying them is key. There are systems out there that do that. Like I said, the IP location, VPNs are used sometimes to hide that, but you would have to have the systems in place. As a small provider of IP, intellectual property, it would be difficult for you to know all of this. That's why you want to use an intermediary that has this in play. So this question really is set up for, or comes to a large provider, a large platform like Amazon that can do all of this. And that's one of the services they provide if you're doing business over their platform, is to actually track, identify, audit, and ensure that they're in accordance with all those privacy rules.
Mm-hmm. And the second question basically follows the first one, and as I understand, you already answered it. Shall they develop a privacy policy, these companies who run business in different states? Shall they develop a privacy policy in compliance with all of the applicable laws? So
it would have to be general in nature because of those issues, and they do vary. The regulations are different from state to state. We have states laws that are highly coveted and protected by the states. We also have the federal law, and sometimes the states will create laws that then have to go to the Supreme Court to determine the legality in terms of the Constitution. But I'm sure it's very similar in Russia, to where you have different regions that may have a little more strict policy on privacy.
Mm-hmm. Have never thought about it. I don't think that our legislation is that are different in different municipalities. I would say it's more unified, but that's my point of view. So if you have any comments, please, you are very welcome, any of our participants.
Great.
It's because I'm not an IP lawyer.
In California, we generally have some really unique laws, and I'm sure that you're aware of that. In California, a lot of times laws are passed here and then they become national, because the other states will copy them. And so if there's a regulation that's put in place about teens using the internet with social platforms, for example, that could be something that's created in California that has a more strict or even a looser regulatory environment, and then it would be challenged or adopted by other states. So that I could see how they would be different.
Yeah. So, and I have some comment that in Russia we have federal regulations, so it's basically unified, which is great.
Everything's changing very quickly because of AI and other new technology innovation. So that's where it becomes tricky.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So cybersecurity and online fraud protection, more of this same kind of thing, where we have audits to conduct cybersecurity audits and identify potential vulnerabilities. We want to do this regularly. Encryption, implement strong encryption methodologies for sensitive customer data. Establish a response plan and address and manage data breaches swiftly. So if there is a breach, how do we respond? And many times companies, at least in the high-tech field, if they are a platform, they're somewhat afraid to respond because they don't want people to know that they had a break-in. And we have people that hold their content hostage. They want to get paid a ransom for ransomware that's established. So that's where all this comes into play. What happens, and we have a pre-established plan as to how this is going to be dealt with. Another part of it is training, to provide training to employees on phishing and online fraud protection. So phishing and online fraud protection is crucial so that your employees know not to open or download suspicious types of email or other content. And that is sometimes difficult to notice. They're very authentic looking. And some other ways that this happens is in the physical sense, to where the platform will have somebody that comes to their door, and it's a service worker in a van that says the name of a company on it, and they're a fake. They're not real. And they'll come in and actually physically go into their computer room, acting as a computer technician, and get it that way. So you have to train your people how to identify threats. Authentication is to enable two-factor authentication for additional security on user accounts. That's become the standard in many areas, to where your phone, you get a code that is sent to you, or email, chat. Monitoring. So deploy monitoring systems that detect and alert for suspicious activities. There's something out of the ordinary, large purchase or too many double purchases of things. Trusted sources. Utilize trusted and secure payment gateways for online transactions. This is very commonly done, especially through very large platforms, to where you have a trusted contact. We know that certain companies are very large, so we allow them to do business very freely, to where others that we don't know have a different level of scrutiny.
Yes, that's, for example, happens with us, our center. We work through our payment system, which has higher percentage that the commission that they take, but we know that everyone trusts them because everyone is used to them. So, and we are happy to use them because they're trustworthy for us and for our customers as well. So, and it's
so it might cost you a little more, right?
Yes, it costs us more because we do get the offers from other transactions. So like online payment transaction systems, that their commission is lower, but we don't trust them. And even if we would love to use them, we're not sure that our customers would trust them. So, and by using them, by using the respected service, we show that we are trustworthy, or at least we hope to look like this, I would say.
Yes, and it is critical because you build your reputation, and that reputation has a lot of value. And that's all it takes, is for something to be in the news or in the media that something bad happened and you just weren't doing due diligence. So that's what this is all about. That's cybersecurity in online fraud. How do we protect? And then ensuring compliance with relevant data protection and cybersecurity regulations. And many times what happens is there are companies, white hat, black hat, they will go in and test your cybersecurity. So they will try to break in to see if they can do it. And if they can, then they find an area that needs to be strengthened. So there's various ways of putting protection in there.
And can I ask a question? You used an interesting expression, white hat and black hat. What does it mean? Because we don't use it.
It means a good guy or a bad guy. Okay. So it may be a good guy that is trying to break in. He's wearing a white hat. He's not a black hat. So we want somebody that's that we trust that's trying to break in to show that we're vulnerable. And then they can then try to find ways to build a protection for that vulnerability. Okay, here we go. Another question. Which of the following practices enhances consumer protection in e-commerce? Is it establishing clear return and refund policies, limiting customer support access, encouraging user reviews for product feedback, implementing strong encryption for sensitive data, or hiding the seller's identity to prevent competition? We have three answers. Establishing clear return and refund policies. That is a good practice for enhancing consumer protection. Encouraging user reviews for product feedback. If we find that there's a third party on our platform, we want to know if they are not acting in an ethical and legal manner. That's good. And implementing strong encryption for sensitive data so that we don't have, as was spoken of earlier, addresses and identities of children or credit card information or anything we feel should not be disclosed. So very good. Let's see who has the lead now. Wow, Dasha caught up a lot on that one. So Mariana as well, 84 points extra for Mariana, and the smiley face had 84. Ivan had 41, but still is up there almost in the lead, in Dasha with 87 points. Next question. Which of the following practices are essential for ensuring consumer protection in e-commerce? Establish easy-to-use customer support channels, use inadequate encryption for payment gateways, regularly increase the prices without notice, encourage customer reviews for transparency, or provide clear information on pricing and delivery times. Which of the following are essential for ensuring customer or consumer protection? Okay, we had three answers on that one, and most of you got them right. Very good. Establish easy to access customer support, to encourage customer reviews for transparency, and provide clear information on pricing. Very good. Who's out there in front now? Looks like Dasha, smiley face, you moved up one. Ivan's still in the second position. Next, we have another question. What measure helps ensure customer trust and security during online transactions? Use public Wi-Fi for transactions to speed up payments. Encourage consumers to share passwords for discounts. Conduct random audits of payment gateway providers, and allow customers to store their payment information without security measures. And finally, implement strong encryption for sensitive customer data. Okay, two answers. Conduct random audits of payment gateway providers. That's important. That's that third party. And implement strong encryption for sensitive customer data. Most people got that one right. Let's see where we are. Okay, Dasha is way out ahead again. 83. Ivan got 38 and 42 for the smiley face, and 78 for Anastasia. You're catching up there, Anastasia. So WIPO recommendations on trademark protection. What does WIPO recommend? Online registration, which is to encourage the use of online systems for trademark registration to enhance efficiency and accessibility for rights holders seeking protection in the digital marketplace. Absolutely. So use the online platforms for that. WIPO has a great platform. And then user education, implement programs to educate users about trademark rights and enforcement mechanisms to promote awareness and proactive measures against infringement online. And they have great, if you go on their website, they have some great user sources there. So one is protection, copyright protection. WIPO provides a framework for copyright protection in the digital space, ensuring creators' rights are respected and enforced through international copyright treaties and conventions. And as a small provider or small user, it would be almost impossible to keep up with all of these regulations. So in all the jurisdictions, so it would be advantageous to go through WIPO for that, or through a large platform. And then trademark guidelines. WIPO offers guidance on trademark protection online, helping businesses navigate legal challenges related to domain names and online brand identity in e-commerce landscape. So WIPO Copyright Treaty and its importance. So it helps us adhere to government or global standards, establishes uniform copyright protections globally, facilitating e-commerce by ensuring creators' rights are respected across borders and promoting international trade of digital goods. So it's just as it is with the United States or a federal government, you have an umbrella, over encompassing regulation. So those global standards are set, and WIPO, with its agreements, help control that. And then enforcement provides robust frameworks for enforcing copyright in digital environments. So empowering creators with tools to combat piracy and to secure fair remuneration for their works. So if they are if their works are infringed upon, those mechanisms help protect them. We're going to go into some of those in a little bit. Control and electronic commerce legislation. So we have the model law. So we draft framework is a draft framework for countries to develop national e-commerce legislation. And that's where we have some of the conformity to adhere to regulations across borders, this model law. The guidelines on forming valid electronic contracts internationally, and standards. Those standards for recognizing electronic signatures as legally valid, which is really important that we have standards for which everybody can use, and that way it's more easily identifiable. And then harmonization, which is encouraging seamless e-commerce through international legal harmonization. Protections, measures to protect consumer rights in digital transactions. And disputes, recommendation for resolving e-commerce disputes efficiently. And then data, incorporating data protection standards in electronic commerce laws across jurisdictions. And governments, resources for and training for governments in applying model laws. So the resources and the training for governments in applying the model laws, which is also an important aspect of this legislation. The UN Convention on Electronic Communications, which is harmonized framework establishes consistent international rules for electronic contracting and secure transactions. The UN Convention also facilitates the use of electronic communications in business transactions. The cross-border validity ensures electronic communications are recognized across jurisdictions. And then consumer protection promotes clarity and rights in online consumer contracts. Okay, so let's try those. What is the primary goal of the WIPO Copyright Treaty in the digital space? Is it to consolidate all creative works under WIPO jurisdiction? Is it to facilitate the international trade of digital goods while protecting the property rights, IP rights? To encourage piracy as a means of spreading culture? Or to eliminate all forms of copyright restrictions globally? And lastly, to establish a uniform global copyright protection for creators? Okay, 2 answers. To facilitate the international trade of digital goods while protecting intellectual property rights, or to establish a uniform global copyright protection for creators. Very good. So it looks like Anastasia moved up. We have another one under that. So it looks like we're very close in the scores now. Next question. What is one key benefit of the WIPO copyright treaty for creators in the digital space? Is it offers financial subsidies to all creators? It promotes unrestricted sharing of digital works. It allows creators to bypass international laws. It eliminates the need for trademark protection, or it establishes uniform copyright protections globally. We're testing your understanding. There you go.
So
Boy, almost everybody. Yeah, very good.
And I think, Dan, that you basically, over the last hour, presented this information in such a way that gave sort of checklists for those who will be working in e-commerce, which like bases to cover and where to look for the information. So in very like summarizing way. So I understand why everyone is so attentive, because it's really like summarizing everything. So if you ever work with e-commerce, just make sure that you cover these points, and very comprehensive.
Yeah, it could be, each one of these could be a presentation by itself.
Yes, of course,
And
we understand.
That's what's difficult when you're giving a presentation on the global ideas. Very specifically, this could go on forever. We could do many of these. So it looks like Dasha's out there in front. We have another one here quickly, which is, what is one primary purpose of WIPO copyright treaty in the context of international trade? Is it to restrict international trade of digital goods, to promote piracy of the digital space, to eliminate copyright laws globally, to facilitate the free distribution of copyrighted works, or to ensure creators' rights are respected across borders? It's almost like we're going back to where we first began. If you remember the first lesson,
Yes.
and they were asking this kind of question. Okay, that's good. Good to see. Most people got that one right.
Yes, and then we will need to do something with the presentation next time, because I can see that the last question is always right. We'll need to we'll need to jumble it somehow.
Yeah, we'll have to scramble them a little. Yes. And it looks like Dash is still out front. We're going to talk about the European Union and e-commerce regulations. And again, these are regional, and that's why it's important to understand that there's going to be jurisdictions that you're going to have either knowledge of, or you're going to have to go with an e-commerce platform that has those capabilities to stay on top of it. So for compliance with GDPR for handling consumer personal data during transactions. So they're going to have their laws in their jurisdiction. They're going to have to be adhered to. Transparency, regulations for transparency and accountability of online platforms and services. And then the alignment, to ensure alignment with EU guidelines for consumer rights in e-commerce. Adherence, and adherence means we're going to continually make sure that we're keeping up with the law, to adhere to the rules regarding online service provisions and cross-border sales. Then we're back to the taxes, value-added taxes or VAT regulations, the implementation of VAT regulations for digital goods and services across the EU. And then web access, ensure website and platform accessibility for users with disabilities. That could be something that is in a jurisdiction you hadn't thought of. In America, we have very strong rules and very strong laws that govern accessibility for people with hearing or sight issues. You know, they don't have eyesight. or they can't hear. Protocols facilitate negotiation protocols for e-commerce disputes in the EU. So we may have to adhere to local laws regarding the dispute mechanisms. And cybersecurity, adopting strong cybersecurity practices to protect consumer information and transactions. So that's the GDPR we keep talking about. I'm sure you know about it, but it is the General Data Protection Regulation. It's data consent to ensure clear consent from users before collecting personal data, with transparent explanations regarding data usage and how it's stored. So that might not have been something that you had thought of. We have to get their consent to get the information in some jurisdictions in order to know and to inform the consumer what we're going to do with that data. Why are we collecting it? Why do we need it? In America, we have very strong rules against discrimination. So they want to make sure that's not. AI is changing a lot of that, because with artificial intelligence, we can inadvertently gather information and break that privacy without knowing it. User rights, to implement processes to facilitate user rights, including access, rectification, and deletion of personal data efficiently and with stipulated timeframes. So having a time frame in there would mean that we'll keep that data in our system for the next year or 2 years. Many times this becomes a problem when you have a third party that's providing that data collection and storage. So that's a key to also ensure that you're adhering to the law. Digital Services Act and marketplace regulations. For consumer protection, we implement clear guidelines for user rights and data usage transparency. For platform liability, establish responsibility for content moderation and removal of illegal content. For market competition, to promote fair competition and prevent anti-competitive practices among platforms. And transparency measures, require disclosure of algorithms that influence content visibility and promotion. And transparency with those algorithms can also be very important, because we want the consumer to know that they are having content fed to them according to an algorithm that is reviewing their behavior or some other mechanism. AI is changing a lot of that too.
And that is very interesting. I was recently thinking about it, because I basically, when I'm at home, I know what my neighbors are looking for on the internet, because I'm sometimes fed by some broken algorithm, some sofas, or I don't know, cat food that I don't have. And it's like continues to be repeated. So I understand that's not like some random choice. So I kind of understand that someone started to look for something specific, and it's quite funny. So when you see that,
and the algorithms in America, at least, with Google, it will track your location.
yeah,
So it knows where I'm going, which types of places I like to go to, and so it'll automatically feed information according to those locations without my knowledge. Some ways that you can test this, if you want, is to go on your favorite movie channel or movie platform, whether it's Amazon or Netflix in America, Hulu, Disney, and create 3 or 4 different family personalities. So, and you can have one that has for adventure, one that's entertainment, and see what it'll feed you, because it'll give you different content. So that's a fun way to test that. E-commerce directive in the EU. So consumer rights in this, it will enhance transparency for consumers regarding pricing, terms of service, and digital content offered online. And the EU is known for having some pretty stringent laws that protect consumers. So this is part of understanding that and how to protect yourself and your online platforms. So establishes liability exemptions for intermediaries acting in good faith to remove infringing content promptly. So that's a good impact of the part of that law. Cross-border services facilitates the free movement of digital services across EU member states while maintaining consumer protection. The World Trade Organization, WTO, has some IP standards for the WTO's TRIPS agreement sets minimum international standards for the protection and enforcement of intellectual property rights, ensuring fair competition in global e-commerce markets. So even the WTO has an impact on the IP laws. So the WTO's work program in electronic commerce facilitates dialogue among member countries on effective trade-related aspects of e-commerce, addressing IP issues across borders, trade discussions. So e-commerce protection, intellectual property. Understanding e-commerce protection is vital for businesses operating online. Intellectual property laws play a crucial role in safeguarding creators' rights. What does e-commerce protection primarily safeguard? Business reputation, physical assets, intellectual property, or consumer data?
That's an easy question. It's good that it's the end because I'm afraid that our
We're getting
participants.
close.
Yes,
Yes.
we're getting close. And I would also, as we have like 13 minutes, 12 minutes left, I would also ask probably our participants to write in chat or on YouTube, because I can see it as well, maybe the most memorable word of the day today, so we have time and we can discuss it at the end. It would be very nice if you do it.
Okay. So we have 24 and 24. You guys got that pretty well. Looks like we have a new leader. Ivan jumped out ahead there on that one. Got 93 points, which pulled his score way up. Key components of intellectual property law are copyrights, trademarks, and patents. I'm going to go through a few of these very quickly. They're fairly easy at the end. Which of the following is not a type of intellectual property? Is it a copyright, corporate data, a patent, or a trademark?
So, as I understand, we decided to go back and revise like the very, very beginning, so to make sure that everyone remembers what they hear. And that is interesting, corporate data.
There you go. You got that right. And who's ahead now? Looks like Ivan's still out there in front. Challenges in e-commerce protection. So challenges include cybersecurity threats, data breaches, and legal compliance. Companies must establish robust policies to mitigate these risks. What is the primary aim of enforcing intellectual property laws? Well, I don't see any question.
Oh, they need to type, as I understand. So, because
okay,
the
got
screen says that they should be
Participants are
typing. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What is the primary aim of enforcing intellectual property laws?
That is very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
So we have to protect the rights of creators, encourage innovation.
we
Protection.
didn't see the question, so I think there was some maybe
I think you probably
technology
had to
hiccup.
get it
Yeah,
from there. Yeah.
yeah. Well, happens.
Yeah. I think that's the same one, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so the importance of trademarks. Trademarks differentiate goods and services in the marketplace. They also provide legal protection against misuse. See if we have any insights into trademarks. Why are trademarks important? They ensure data security. They comply with tax regulations. They lower shipping costs, or they enhance broad recognition or brand recognition, excuse me. I think we're going to have to change that, like you said.
We will not give this hint. I think
Yeah.
you'll manage to catch it, but still.
Yeah. There you go. They enhance brand recognition. Trademarks don't really help with data security. In conclusion, safeguarding digital commerce. E-commerce protection and intellectual property laws are essential for online businesses. Understanding and applying these principles can lead to sustainable growth and innovation. So on the TRIPS agreement, in digital goods, minimum standards, which TRIPS helps sets baseline requirements for copyright and trademark protections globally. So becoming a part of TRIPS helps you do that. Cross-border enforcement facilitates the enforcement of IP rights in international trade. Anybody that's a signature it has some cross-border enforcement rights. Digital goods extends protection to digital products and services under IP frameworks. And then harmonization efforts promotes alignment of national laws to enhance global IP protection. So as part of your governmental oversight, there's that attempt to harmonize the TRIPS agreement with international or national laws. And then the OECD guidelines in consumer protection. There's so much to this, which is astounding, and it becomes very complex. Transparent information so that we ensure clear, accessible product information and pricing on websites for informed consumer decisions. For consumer rights, when we're talking about OECD countries, we want to ensure that people that are maybe lesser developed areas of the world that have a lack of knowledge and maybe sophistication in their business systems, that they are also protected. And that's why these protections are here to guarantee protection of consumer rights, including refunds, exchanges, complaints for e-commerce transactions, and then to secure their transactions or implement robust security measures. And some of that could be that geo-blocking. On the opposite side of that is to protect in some environments that are known for having a really high rate of fraud. When I lived in Laos, for example, the Discover card, which is a fairly large card. Do you have Discover in Russia?
No, it never worked in Russia.
And it doesn't work in Laos either. And it's a protection that was put in place by Discover Card. The company wants to protect themselves from fraud because of the potential there. They just feel it's not a good business decision in securing those transactions. I know we're almost out of time. Legal standards to protect IP online. So this is kind of going back over what we've gone through here. Is notice and takedown, which enables the rights holders to request removal of infringing content. A safe harbor limits liabilities for platforms for user-generated infringing content. We want to have safeguards. It's like a utility, if you think about it. The platform is just like electricity coming out of the wall. If somebody abuses the electricity, is it the electrical utility's fault? And the answer is probably no. So that helps safeguard them. Technological measures to legal protection against circumvention of digital rights management tools. And then domain name resolution, procedures to resolving trademark disputes involving domain names. Digital watermarking, technologies used to identify and track copyrighted content online, utilizing technology. And then enhanced customs measures, improves procedures for detecting counterfeit goods in e-commerce. I think we're almost out of time, aren't we?
Yes, we have like 4 minutes left.
4 minutes. Notice and take down procedures. So this is really a good protection. So you want to have notice where rights holders submit notice of infringement promptly online to online platforms. If somebody's infringing upon your copyrighted content, you want to have the ability to notify them. Identification, which is infringing content must be clearly identified and the notice submitted. Details, provide accurate contact details for follow-up communication regarding the claim. Review, platforms should have a clear review process for assessing infringement claims. Rapid action, platforms should expect to act quickly on valid takedown requests. Response, include a process for users to respond to takedown requests. Records, to maintain the records of notices and takedown actions for future reference in case there is a potential for litigation. And compliance, ensure procedures comply with applicable local and international laws. So we're probably out of time. I wanted to leave a little time for your questions if you had any.
For now, no more questions. No.
So this, I can make this available again, PowerPoint for you so that you have it. Safeguard provisions, a little bit more on that on the platforms. So user monitoring to implement systems that to proactively monitor user-generated content for infringement. And this happens a lot because people are using newer technologies to incorporate music or other copyrighted properties, and without really meaning to infringe on it, but you want to catch that. Notice system to establish clear protocols for rights holders and report alleged infringements. Response timeline, set strict timelines for responding to takedown requests from rights holders, and it shows that you're doing your due diligence. And then education programs provide training for users on copyright compliance and best practices. Have time for one more question?
No. I
Okay.
think everyone, is thinking about how, I would say the word of the class today or our webinar was transparency and safe harbor. How safe our and transparent and protected our transactions are when we are buying something online. So, and there is so much room for thought in everything that we have looked today, thanks to you. So, and a lot, and I think a lot of us are maybe not horrified, but amazed by the amount of, as you said, complexity of the issues involved. If you speak about e-commerce and intellectual property, and intellectual property is just a part of e-commerce, so it is a huge area.
It is becoming, if not already, some of the largest areas of commerce is that intellectual property. When you're talking about video streaming and books and other content, contracts.
Yes, it's so much. And I think we will all need to look at it, process it, think about it. And thank you very much for providing us with presentations, with the vocabulary, with the extra activities. And I would like to thank everyone who joined us today. It's November. It's extremely cold and sad in Russia because it is, I would say, together with February, these are the worst months of the year for us because it's just like dark and gloomy. And we're very glad that you spent your time, you are contributed your time to be with us. And of course, I thank so much you, Dan, for making it this webinar today not only valuable in its content, but for providing us also with the interaction, because interaction is really great. It was fun. And
if you need more explanation, let me know.
Yes, and please, if anyone has got any questions, please do write them, because we will transfer them to Dan, and we may answer them next time or just in person. And I would like to say that we have our equator. We are right in the middle. We have had 3 webinars past us, and we are going to have 3 more webinars. On the 20th of November, we're going to speak about intellectual property management, so next time. Then on the 4th of December, infringement, big thing. And on the 18th of December, I think it's going to be some of the most awaited webinar is going to be on AI governance, related policies and regulatory efforts underway globally.
And those are fantastic.
Okay. I'm already feeling and how we're building up the expectations. So, and then on the 21st and the 22nd of December, we're going to have some online test for those who would like to get a certificate, not only to participate in these webinars, but also to have a paper that everyone loves. It's going to be like from me and Dan, but nevertheless, if you would like to get one, do participate. And thank you everyone, thank you Dan, and see you in 2 weeks at the end of November. Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.